First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for being here today. Each and every one of you seated here play an invaluable role in some of the objectives we are trying to achieve as Abasa. And you look absolutely stunning, I must say. I thought I was a little bit underdressed when I saw some of you, but a gentleman walked up to me and he said, "Wakanda forever!" So, ladies and gentlemen, just to take you through what is happening within and outside the venue today, we have a career fair that has been opened up to many students from high school level to university students, and even some of our trainees will be here with us, just getting exposure from our corporate firms, professional bodies, and other individuals who play a significant role within the pipeline development. We also have restrooms on either side of the convention center. So if you do need a break, you can use any one of the open doors on the side. Another thing just to take note of in terms of the technology within the room, kindly switch your phones on silent or do not disturb mode, as it does interfere with some of the technology. Take a seat, relax, and get ready to participate in something that is about to blow your mind away. Kindly note that our program will be as follows. We have our first panel, which will be talking about the evolution of higher education in a post-democratic South Africa. Then we have our second panel, which will be touching base on digital reforms and historical socio-economic challenges. Thereafter, there will be a short intermission for 15 minutes so as to allow people to get some teas and coffees. Thereafter, we will return for panel number 3, which will touch base on Africa and global mobility for the accounting profession. Hereafter, we'll have panel number 4, which will be talking about the business of enterprise development. Thereafter, there will be a lunch break for half an hour, and then we will come back for panel number 5, reimagining the CA Charter, and we'll close off with the Transformation Forum, embracing effective advocacy. So throughout the day, these speakers will be touching on critical issues that I hope that you will not only listen in on, but also engage, as each and every one of us have something to bring to the table. It's a collaborative approach, and I look forward to hearing each and every one of your inputs. On the morning of such an incredible day, I have the privilege of inviting you all to join in on a conversation of significant importance: the evolution of higher education. In the wake of our democracy, our nation's educational landscape has witnessed profound shifts. In the dynamic environment, the field of accountancy education has also not remained stagnant. It has adapted, it has evolved, and it has strived to keep a place within the changing needs of South Africa. It has adapted and is marked by both triumph and also tribulation as we grapple an educational crisis that threatens the very foundation of our profession. Our discussion today holds profound significance. Today we will be reflecting on the past, confronting the challenges of the present, and setting our sights on the future. Our mission is not only to uphold the highest standards of our field, but also to nurture the generations of accountants who will drive the nation to greater heights. This will allow for contribution to economic growth, social equity, as well as sustainable development. As we embark on this journey of introspection and insight, we have the privilege of having a panel of individuals who bring a wealth of knowledge, experience, as well as perspective. This morning, kindly help me in calling the following individuals up. We have Professor Ben Marks, who is the head of school at UG Accountancy. We have Dr. Indara, who is the Director of Education at Cornerstone Performance Solutions. We have Ms. Nompendulo Mkhatshwa, who is a member of the National Assembly, as well as a member of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation. We also have Mrs. Pelele Komo, who is the head of department at the University of Zululand Department of Accounting and Auditing, and she's also the board chairperson of Moses Kotane Institute. Over the course of this discussion, we will explore a series of critical questions each tailored to the unique experiences and roles of our esteemed panelists. Together, we will delve into the past, present, and future of education in South Africa and strive to illuminate a path forward. It's my hope that in this dialogue, we will not only discuss, but be a catalyst for change, which will be a testament to our shared commitment to education and a beacon of hope for the future of our beloved nation. So may our panelists please join us up as we delve into this topic. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think before we get into the business of the day, I will allow each of the panelists just to give us a brief overview of their understanding of the topic, as well as the contribution that they have regarding this. I'll start to my right with Prof. Ben.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. And congratulations, just Linda, on this wonderful, wonderful event. 38 years, phenomenal. Just as far as higher education is concerned and the evolving of higher education, I think I will state the obvious. Higher education of today is different than higher education of yesterday, and higher education of tomorrow will also evolve. But higher education it's the environment we live in. It's dynamic, it's exciting, but I think we need to understand the challenges that's faced by higher education, and specifically, as we are accountants here today, which is close to our heart, also accounting education. And if we can understand what the needs are, what the challenges are of the various parties to the value chain, we can be responsive to that. And I think that's also part of the discussion we want to have. And just to put that into perspective, for me, there's three parties to the value chain. There's our students, and we need to understand our students. We need to be responsive to our students, because that's what higher education is about. Then there's the higher education institutions, and we need to adapt, we need to be in touch with reality, and we need to be able to respond to the challenges we face. And then we need to look at, and I want to call it the world of work, our entrepreneurs, but also the employers. What do they expect of a graduate? What is the needs? What is the requirements? The world, digitalization's got a huge effect, but we must prepare our graduates to be ready for the world of work so they can excel in that. So that's just in short from me.
Things you so much for those thoughts, Prof. Ben. I think I'll now hand it over to Prof. Cameron from UNISA to just share his insights.
Thank you so much, Daniel. For me, the accounting profession has transformed over the years, and most importantly, I think what we're doing also at UNISA as well is most importantly in terms of the type of graduates that we're actually producing. The fact that our employers have said that they want graduates which have got the requisite skills in order for them to be able to be agile, to hit the ground running. And one of those important aspects which has been listed by some of our potential employers is that they want students to have the right digital skills, the IT skills in terms of how do they maneuver around the various ERP systems. We live in a digital environment. And what is also interesting, the fact that, previously at UNISA we used to have much more older people which are registered, but now we've got younger people coming in from straight from high school, and those people, for example, they're quite tech savvy. So it's quite important that we train our graduates, our people that are going to be out there in the market to have the right IT skills in terms of them actually adding value. Because the role of an accountant or an auditor has changed over the years. We're no longer doing tick bashing, etc. So you need to be, you get given a computer, you need to maneuver around a software system. I think that's one of the most critical and important aspects around the accounting and the evolution of the accounting education. Another challenge which I think is around student funding. Majority of our students, they come from previously disadvantaged backgrounds, and the whole issue of how do we ensure that our funding of our students remains sustainable. There's a big challenge in terms of, back when I did my studies, I had the privilege of having a bursaries. Some of these students don't have bursaries. How do we ensure that employers, they actually come in and they fund this accounting education, which is quite important, because I feel the role of an accountant, auditor, or business professional, it needs to be supported by various big business in terms of coming to the party, in terms of developing the new pipeline of accountants and auditors, which will be ultimately add value. So those are the two critical issues. It's around the impact of IT, and also how do you go about the issue of funding, and with NAFSAs, etc. There's just so many things which are plagued in the system. And lastly, will be the issue of unemployment. We know that some of our graduates, they normally struggle to find jobs, even though we try to place them as an institution using our partners and stakeholders. But the majority of them, they still really struggle to find that opportunities for articles. So how do we make sure that the type of graduates that ultimately were being produced now currently in 2023, once they finish their CTA, etc., they will find employment next year in 2024. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Prof. And I think you touched on a plethora of issues. Fundamentally, the profession is looking for individuals who have professional acumen, technological acumen, and will be able to come into the job market prepared to hit the ground running. You did touch on a lot that we are about to delve into. Next up, I would like to go to Dr. Indira for your thoughts.
Thanks, Ntando. I think this is just such profound discourse. And, we've been talking about multiple plethoras in terms of the disciplines and multiple disciplines of workplace integration and the co-creation of knowledge. I don't think we've done enough, and it's really time that we become much more action-orientated in ensuring that we have a workforce that is actually quite formidable. And we must not forget the actual stature that we have in South Africa. So I'll take a moment, because I think it would be remiss of me if I don't acknowledge the accounting fraternity, the professional bodies, the employers, and our chartered accountants for recently really augmenting the stature of the profession by increasing the trust index quite significantly on a global platform. So if most of you would just reflect on the Edelman survey, basically from a global perspective, the confidence and the trust levels for South African chartered accountants was increased significantly from 85% to 96% over a 2-year period. And that says a lot. And it's a recognition that we must be proud of, but we need to also understand what happens to the people who are left behind. What happens to the individuals who actually go into the education system and who complete only 2 years of a 3-year qualification? They leave an institution without any formal recognition. So why isn't it an opportunity for us to start creating an opportunity to give them part qualifications so they can enter the workforce in a much more elevated and a formidable basis and have an opportunity of completing their education, especially in an environment which we've spoken about in terms of the fact that our students are still plagued with excessive tuition fees. They're still plagued with student debt. So we as public organizations, private organizations, government, we need to ensure that we translate academia into skills development. And yes, there has been quite a formidable agenda in terms of ascending skills development from the academic environment, but I don't think enough has been done. We are not deliberate in ensuring that when individuals leave a academic institution that they are ready for the workforce. So imagine this. You have a CTA graduate who enters your environment. The CTA graduate already within the tertiary environment would have had an opportunity of working on working papers. They would have had an opportunity of applying, they would have had an opportunity of evaluating. And imagine the compounding impact that that has on your organization in terms of productivity, in terms of workforce fatigue, in terms of getting your audits out on time and ensuring that you have enough time for quality assurance. So we need to start ensuring that we build the workforce from the tertiary environment. And I think in the context of the tertiary environment, there has to be acknowledgement that you can't do it on your own. There has to be collaboration with multiple stakeholders, including private providers who have worked in these arenas for multiple years and can help with the transition of taking graduates and school leavers into the professional realm. So it is time that we start also working with paradigms of our students, ensuring that they have the opportunity of changing their mindsets. And as they change their mindsets, let us ensure that their actions are orientated towards their personal growth and the growth of the business. And I think it's also an opportunity for us to really sit back and think about our education sub-frameworks in the context of the higher education and the occupational sub-frameworks, and no longer advocate that the two sub-frameworks are really aligned to a parity of esteem. Because the reality is that there may be so many commonalities between them, but they are so vast in terms of their implementation and their execution. So it's really time for us to get together as a formidable higher education fraternity and integrate occupational education into our environment and ensure that when individuals get into the workplace that they already have built self-efficacy, they're confident, they have purpose, and they can work in an environment where they can create value from the outset as opposed to navigating into an ecosystem, eroding their confidence in the process and wondering if it was actually worth going through a 7-year journey of education.
I think those are some hard-hitting points, and I think we did discuss this beforehand, that in terms of the skill set of individuals coming into the profession, it's something that's going to need a collaborative approach. If you look at the journey of a trainee in their first year, the first 6 to 12 months are honestly spent on understanding the business environment. And if we had equipped these individuals from a third-year level or a CTA level, by the time that they go into these environments, they would have been able to hit the ground running, saving the bottom line, and even though that's not the original target, but fundamentally it will allow them to be in a position where they actually learn more. And looking at it from the side of a collaborative perspective, Nompendulo, can you just share us your insights in terms of, from your space of influence, how do you look at this?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ntando, and good morning to colleagues who are in the room. Thank you very much to the President, Sis Linda. I wasn't feeling very well this morning, but last week when we were in Parliament, receiving the MTBPS, she was like, yeah, I know you guys, that's why I don't like to invite you guys, because your schedule is so unpredictable. So I was like, you know what, I need to make sure that I am with her this morning, regardless of how I feel. So I am here, and I just want to also acknowledge the fact that the work that the likes of Abasa, APSIB, the BMF, BLA, the work that you do, I think is really quintessential, given the fact that these sectors were deliberately designed to exclude someone who looks like me and Sis Linda. And so I really think it's important that you exist. And perhaps when I think of the evolution of the PSET system or higher education and training, and perhaps use a platform like this for lobby purposes, that's what we politicians do, because of coordination, partnership. We can't do it on our own. I think as a young person, who is a member of parliament who has the honor of chairing the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, I've come to realize that what President Ramaphosa says about a public-private partnership is really important. Social compacting is the only way government will be able to do what it needs to do for the society. So for me, when I think of the evolution of the sector, there's a couple of things that are very important. One, it's investment by alumni, particularly in our historically, I personally, and this is a debate that we can have at some point, refer to them as historically black institutions. Others prefer to refer to them as historically disadvantaged institutions. But essentially what I think is that alumni needs to go back. We can't allow Forte to be in the state of which it is in. We can't allow MUT to be in the state of which it is in. We can't allow for a woman who's trying to turn the tide at UniZulu to struggle when she needs to make decisions that are unfavorable because she must fear some construction mafias that exist, and so forth. Alumni needs to stand up. It needs to have a voice. Don't also go and contest convocation because you want to have a say in who gets what tender. That is what is derailing those institutions. The interest sometimes for people to contest for convocation and so forth is not to strengthen these institutions, but actually becomes regressive to what we're trying to achieve. Those who went to Stellenbosch, who went to UP, who went to UJ, who went to Booker, are very intentional about their investment into those institutions because of the recognition they want their qualification to continue to have in the global discourse, but because they want to take their children and their grandchildren to those institutions. So we also need to be very intentional about investing in your historically black or historically disadvantaged institutions. That's my first point. There's a lot of help that is needed there. Let's sit in councils, let's run for convocation, and so forth. TVET colleges is my greatest obsession, and it is an obsession of the Portfolio Committee, because everything that we can touch and feel and see in this room, I don't think as a Bachelor of Science graduate at Wits University, I could have contributed to it. It definitely comes from someone with artisanal skills. I always use a very raw example of the fact that the first thing most of us do in the morning, and the small room there in your house, that's where you go. First thing you do in the morning, you go there. And when that room, its facilities are not functioning well, it's a crisis. And the first thing you want to do is call your local plumber. And honestly, the local plumber doesn't always have a website, doesn't always have all these fancy things. That fit into a small toolbox like this. But you needed that person to come. You couldn't have done it yourself. So if every young person in our country can be equipped with skills like that we need on a day-to-day basis that has such a huge impact in our country, surely we could shift the dynamics of unemployment in this country. And so for me, TVET skills are quintessential. The Portfolio Committee on Higher Education recently went to Switzerland. And at the core of Switzerland's economy is innovation. And innovation that is supported by artisanal skills. They are obsessed about what they call polytechniques, or what they call, which is like a University of Technology / TVET. They are obsessed about universities of applied sciences. It's all good and well to do your research, but how do you convert that research into an innovation that can have direct impact on society? And so I believe that our TVET colleges also need to be included in that particular network, because often, CSIR, NRF, TIA, they will always work with our universities or universities of technology. So we're pushing them as a portfolio committee to say, when you are having these technology innovation parks and projects, you need to move towards your TVET colleges as well, because that is where we should be investing in terms of artisanal skills that can have a direct impact in terms of affording young people to immediately participate within the economy. And so TVET colleges is quintessential. I think I'll speak to the rest as the conversations go on, but maybe end it with the importance of us pushing for partnerships for our TVET colleges and our seaters. And I'm so happy that Facet is here and Facet is a stakeholder here. Also, as part of my oversight, you know, sometimes they come and account these seaters and they say, we had an event here, we used this much here, and sometimes you wonder if it's a made-up event or if it's a made-up beneficiary. But today I can see, no, it's an event, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can see it. There were people in the room, they didn't sign some bogus registry or attendance list, you know, so it's also really great to see that our seaters are plowing into such important conversations that need to be had. But those partnerships are so important, and we saw in Switzerland that in terms of private-public partnerships for research and development, they're sitting in the 90s, like 90-something%. In South Africa, askafiki nagu 1%. And it is a frustration of the Department of Science and Innovation. And so those partnerships are important. I think one of our colleagues, actually you, Ntando, were talking about being ready for industry, right? And if industry is saying the curriculum we're giving is not the right one, it's not the requisite curriculum, they must help us shape it. And the Department of Higher Education is putting together a master skills plan. And Sis Linda, please make sure that you guys are part of that. I'll try also facilitate that Abasa is part of that so that you can inform how you think as Abasa the curriculum needs to look like to address some of what Ntando has raised and so forth. But we also need, for partnerships to take place, for work-integrated learning, for investment in workshops. I mean, the workshops in our TVET colleges are not looking the way, look, they're not bad. I went to Switzerland and I've seen workshops that look like the ones I saw in Switzerland, but in our country, right? And we all think Switzerland is great, right? So I was like, hi, but this is like how we have it back home, you know? So we are doing well. We are moving in the right direction. The efforts of Deputy Minister Puti Manamela to make TVET colleges look attractive and not to be a space where young people go because I didn't get into a university. That mentality in young people is changing. It is changing. The applications for TVET colleges are way more than the space that we have. So we need investment by private sector for us to expand the TVET industry, right? But people will only invest in something that looks like it's working. People will only invest where they are brought into confidence that their investments will yield great results, that whatever money they're putting in can be accounted for. And this is where Facet is doing work, and maybe Sis Linda, you guys can also get involved there, because we need to up the capacity of our TVET colleges and our universities to manage their finances well. Coastal TVET College was put under administration. They lost so many partnerships. And Tina, as government, we don't have enough money to fund the TVET sector. If you look at how much we put towards the TVET program vis-a-vis how much we put towards the university program, it's embarrassing. So we really need us as a collective to strengthen our institutions so that there's good management and good governance, be it through sitting on councils, be it through sitting in the convocation, so that these institutions can be well-functioning and be attractive to investment so that they can fulfill the role that they ought to fulfill in transforming our economy. Thank you.
Thank you for those thoughts. Yeah. I think for me, the largest aspect or the chain that I'm noticing, the running theme, is that social compact is the best way forward. Fundamentally, we all need someone to rely on, and the only way we can put confidence in those individuals is if we know that they come from reputable institutions that we as ordinary citizens can trust. I think within the individuals in the room, it calls for a sacrifice that you have to make to say that within my individual space, whether I stay in a Kukuletu in Cape Town, Guamashu in Durban, Eskawini in Empangeni, or even here, down the road at Soweto, where I've been needs to come into play to say, how can I go back and make a change or a contribution? Lastly, I'd go to you, Mamkom. Don't be surprised if I call her Umama. She was my financial reporting lecturer when I was doing my undergraduate qualification. And I will probably share some of the sentiments that you are to bring forward, but I won't anticipate. I'll allow you to please put forward your contributions.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Sanbonani, Dumelang. It's a great pleasure to be here. Really, what really comes in my mind when I'm reflecting on this particular topic is saying to me, the biggest stakeholder in higher education is the students. And what is very exciting and interesting right now is that the students that we have, they are very vocal. They are actually driving the curriculum.
Yeah.
They tell us that, Mrs. Com, this is what is happening in another university. What are you doing for us? So I'm very actually excited and I'm very pleased, to know and to be exposed and engage with such young people that have a vision. Now, where we are in academia right now, we are reflecting a lot in terms of how can we assist the students to develop the skills that is needed. And wherever I get opportunity to speak, I always say to people, we are not helping the students to develop the skills for only the workplace. We want people that are going to go out there and have businesses. And I always get very concerned that how we bring the issue of entrepreneurship, it always has a negative connotation to it, that we only need to build entrepreneurs because there's high unemployment. But that is not the role of entrepreneurship. Yes, it does help with creating jobs, but it will help with empowering people, to be independent. Economic empowerment, that's what we need. So entrepreneurship drives that. So I would really like to urge each and every one of us here that when you are talking about entrepreneurship to young people, don't talk about it only just for job creation purposes. It's not only for that, because then a person is thinking, okay, what is in it for me? There's nothing besides creating jobs. But where do we get economic empowerment from? Through entrepreneurship. It's one of the tools. But really the big thing for me is then saying academics are in trouble. If you think that when you join academia, you're going to have a good life, you're going to go home at 2, When I meet young people that wants to join academia, that wants to come to New Zulu, they're just tired of, commerce. It's too hectic. At least academia, it's a place where you can, have fun, can have time. No, it's a big mistake. Academia is no longer like that anymore. We actually have 4 spheres that I always say that you need to focus on if you're trying to sell the career to a young person. 1, you need to be able to teach. So teaching and learning is very key. And we thought, with the advent of what industrial revolution, with digitalization, we can just put things online. Kids will just fiddle around and will be able to be educated in that way. Unfortunately, still post-COVID, we're proven wrong. The students said to us, we tried it, we had, in fact, 2 contract posts where we said it's going to be online. These kids have been studying online, they used to online. The students came back and said, no, we are not UNISA, Mrs. Com. We are University of Zululand. So we need lecturers in front of us. So teaching and learning is still key. We still have to go and teach. Yes, we can use the blended approach. Yes. The advantage today is that you can be able to upload things on our learner management systems, but that alone is not adequate. So we still need teachers. Yes. Now the question is, can the accountants, can the professionals that are not trained to be teachers teach? Unfortunately, not. Maybe we are sitting with the problems that we are sitting with today. It's because we are not teachers. So we need to admit we are not teachers. Therefore, we need to upskill. Yeah. And fortunately for us now, there are qualifications that we can do, like postgraduate diploma in higher education. So we need to equip ourselves so that we can teach. Meaning we need to train the students. Yes, we can collaborate with other people from other disciplines like the English experts and so on when it comes to languages. But what I've realized, I mean, I've been in the game for almost 15 years now. What I've realized is that, yes, we can send kids to the language expert, but I need to be an expert myself because it's pointless for the students to go and learn the language skills and then they come and apply the same in my financial reporting, but I don't know what to look for. And I could even give them a wrong because I read the kids have learned, I haven't learned, so I'm not at par with them. So we need to upskill as lecturers and we need to journey with the students. I've made peace, I've said to myself, I am a student again. So when you're taking them to these expect areas, be part of it so that then you can start implementing the same. Because we need to see the change. To me, the problems have been there in the past. Nothing has changed. But what has to change is how we're doing things. So how we are training the students as academics has to change. Otherwise, we'll be sitting here 10 years down the line. We'll be talking about the students that cannot write reports, the same old, same old. It's boring, really. We just need to do something about it. And as academics, we must, unfortunately, relearn, learn these skills. They're equally important. So for me, that is key. And research and innovation, unfortunately for academia, is very critical, you know. But to me, what I've learned, I've said to myself, you know what? Actually, in this whole research that we don't like as academics, I mean, in accounting, we don't do any research. We do two qualifications. There is no research component. I'm talking colleagues, academic research. Now, not the normal research. When you're asking an accountant, can you do research? Of course, yes. We're not talking about that research. We are talking about academic research. So that is key. So if you want to join academia, we have to do academic research. There is a value in it. Especially where one is sitting. I mean, I went through school, finished matric, I couldn't even write a sentence in English. So I've learned English as I move around. Fortunately, I went to VET, so by the time I finished at VET, at least I could even make a sentence. I was very proud of myself. Please give me a huge round of applause for at least being able to write. So now, I'm back at University of Zululand. We are still faced with the same problem, you know. So, but now, another way we can try and help the students that are coming to us is by putting research in our programs, you know, because at least their writing communication skills will develop, they will learn presentation skills, they'll do projects and so on. So research and innovation, I've come to appreciate it. Initially, I was like, I'm there for 5 years, I'll go back to commerce and industry. I don't have to waste my time, you know, equipping myself with this research, academic research, presenting papers and so on. But eventually, I've made peace. One has to do it. And the third one, the third component that is important in higher education is community engagement, where collaborations comes in. You know, that we are sitting, for instance, I'm based in Guadalangezwa campus. I don't visit the schools in Guadalangezwa. I don't know what the issues are. They have an accounting issue, but we've got accountants in-house that can go and assist them. So we need to be engaging. But the key thing, really, while we're sitting at higher education, we need to go back and assist in basic education. Some of the issues that we are really grappling with will be forever trying to bridge the gap, because some of the things I should really not be doing them at higher education level. It should be covered in basic education. But now, if we are not going back and working together, and we keep working in silos, it's just not going to help. So where community engagement comes in. You know, obviously the last one is administration. Guys, we're running around in academia. There's so much administration, I must say. And accountants are not good in admin, you know. When I did this profession, I thought I'll be sitting, I always tell my students that, you know, I was told, go do your articles. Once you're done with your articles, you'll be having a good job, you know. So in my head, I started creating this picture of an office where I'll be sitting in a roving chair, you know, just moving around, telling people what to do. But little did I knew that actually even at the highest position, we'll still be working very, very, very hard. So, but these things needs to be, we need to try and calculate this kind of culture in our students. So When I went back to academia, I told the students, I keep telling them even till today that, you know what, when you go to articles, you are going there to learn the basic skills that you need. You're gonna be using those skills for the rest of your life. Don't go in there thinking I'm gonna go in for 3 years, then my life is gonna be sorted and I'm gonna have a great time. Whatever you take those articles very serious. You know, the chairperson knows me, Tanda, so I used to go and cry. I don't understand this. I don't know why I'm doing this. You know, because I thought, really, I'm going to be a chartered accountant. I'll be calling shots. So I don't need all these small things, these small jobs, you know. So we need then to train the students and prepare them, whether a person goes and open their own business or they go and to the world of work, but they must be able to deal with both. Sure. But this has to start at the basic education level, that life is really about hard work. That's what life is about. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think one thing that all the panelists here on stage would probably agree with is that within these institutions of learning, whether it's skills development at a private level or education within higher education facilities, is that we want to develop globally competitive graduates, but also we're trying to market it in such a way that they stay at home in order to prepare our country for the future. Now, with an education system that is allegedly evolving, I'm trying not to be controversial, but it's allegedly evolving, how are these higher education institutions really preparing the students for the future if the curricula itself seem to be still focused on just basic theory without workplace involvement? Now, I want to couple this question in with another aspect that we touched a bit in our previous convention in 2023, which was, are we capacitating the capacitators? Are lecturers truly getting the support that they need? Are even high school teachers getting the support that they need? I remember Ukaya Stole actually touched base on research that they did in the Eastern Cape to see that are even the teachers within basic education equipped with the knowledge and skill set to pass on knowledge, critical such as mathematics, physical sciences, biology, accounting, to students. And they found that there is a huge challenge in that the content is there, but the understanding is lacking. So just those thoughts, and I'll start with Prof. Ben. Are we capacitating the capacitators? And is the curriculum moving in a direction where it's taking into consideration the individuals coming into it?
Thank you very much. And I think the curriculum is evolving. I mean, it's actively evolving. Business acumen, digital acumen, pervasive skills, it's evolving. But I think the challenge and I'm maybe digest a bit to that is, I think for us as educators, is to be aware and understand first our student body. Because if we understand our students, where they're coming from, we understand their needs, we can be responsive to that. I just want to go back one step, and I think we've got a responsibility, all of us as well, to go back to schools and give career guidance. Because students should know where they want. Not everybody should become a doctor. Not everybody should become an accountant. In the past, we had it a lot, and hopefully, I think, not being too critical of our own profession, but I've said it right. AI is not going to replace humans. Chartered accountants still will have jobs. But we need to evolve. We need to be the custodian of technology. And we need to teach students that at university. Now, how do we get students at university to be responsive to this new world of work? We need to give them context. I mean, and it's important to understand it, and that's where we can bring in technology to give them those skills. If you have a child who comes from a home where the father is a CEO and the mother is a CFO, and they talk business every day around the table, that student's going to have a different context to a student coming from a rural area, who's bright, who's super bright, but you need to give him the context to be able to understand and master the technical on that. And I think that's the challenge. That's the challenge at my own institution that we embrace, is to give people the context so they can excel at what they do. And this is where the partnership then come in with business. And we can bring in business and to enable us as lecturers to make the learning real. And how do you do that? You do that through not just your traditional learning. You can embrace technology. You can embrace the technology phenomenally. But where in the past we would have went and have taught a technical class on the wonderful subject of auditing, those that you would have, or an accounting standard. You can record that class, and a student can stop and go back and learn again. But you need that interactiveness. Now, Spalele and myself were talking earlier, human interaction is part of our life. We need people back in the classroom where we can talk, where we can learn from each other. And there's different ways how you can do that. So we need to embrace that, but we as academics need to understand how the world has evolved. We need to understand how technology can enable us to give that learning, and then to be responsive to the needs of the business world. But we also need to be in touch with what's happening outside, and that's where we were talking about alumni. Come back and talk to us. Come back and lecture to us. It's, I just need to say this. We've got phenomenal graduates. And sometimes they refer to us in South Africa as a third world country and a developing country. Makes me just angry, sorry, but we've got first world graduates the first will come and steal our best talent. And we need to keep you here. So you can go overseas and you can go and get experience, but come back and make this country work. And that's what we need to do, but we've all got a responsibility to do that. I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate. I'm totally digressing from you, but when I've got an audience, but we need to. I mean, it's, we are a country of so much talent, and we're agile and we make things work. But we can sit and talk about problems and endlessly, or we can find solutions. And that's what we must do. I mean, so something just while I've got a floor here, just while we got the ear here of the powers. I mean, undergraduate, our students, the financial needs of our students are huge. Undergraduate, there's NSFAS. And yes, but there's postgraduate, there's no NSFAS funding. And where do our students get their funding from to fund their studies? And that's the challenges. So let's try and remove those barriers, so that the student who's doing a postgraduate study can excel without the worries. And that's all of our responsibilities. And that's what we must do. So, yeah, so sorry, I totally diverted here. But I mean, so we must reinvent ourselves as lecturers. But I think that social compact, the students are there. We need to nurture them, and we need to give them the freedom to excel at what they do. Thank you.
Yes, Ntando, I think when I was listening to your initial question, it is so layered. I'm going to give you a practical example in terms of the type of graduates or students that we're getting. For example, at UNISA, we've got this bridging course called a higher certificate in accounting. And that's normally for those students that don't normally qualify to go into the CA stream. And guess what? Looking at the numbers, I was just looking at them the other day, a majority of students are actually applying for that simply because the maths is just terrible at high school level. So students don't necessarily go into the CA program straight. They normally go to that bridging course, which is the higher certificate in accounting, and it's quite dire. So we actually inherit those students that have got maths lit or poor marks in maths, and we have to train them. Even some of them don't even understand English, etc. And another thing which I've noted, I was talking to, yesterday at the golf day, someone asked me, say, hey, Prof. Cam, I want to come through and be a marker and be a moderator, whatever at UNISA, but your requirements are so high. Why do you have to do a master's? I'm a CA, I'm fine. We've changed the requirements at UNISA, that if you want to be a marker, if you want to be a tutor, etc., we require people to have a master's degree and a PhD degree, and people just don't understand that concept. It's the whole concept of the fact that if you want to dabble in the space of being in academia, you need to learn how to teach, and you need to learn how to be a researcher. You can't call yourself a teacher of accounting or a lecturer of accounting if you're not interested in research. Then don't be in that space. If you want to be a CA also, but don't come to academia. But then don't come to academia when we tell you I'm always fighting with my team that, you know what, we all need to get PhDs in accounting. And they don't get it, some of them. But it's quite important in terms of the fact that we need to become teachers and inspire young people and know how to teach us. Because, you know, the world is changing. The world is changing, and there's this requirement that we need to be properly skilled, and most importantly, the type of graduates which you are producing in the market that can do things. Another challenge which I've noticed is the fact that, you know, when I normally give my tests in terms of, you know, students normally struggle in terms of finding jobs. I always say, you know, why can't we push our students to become entrepreneurs? Immediately after they finish that qualification, which I think is quite important. And those skills, they need to be part of the program that when we teach our accountants in our, you know, various CA program, whether it's CIMA, CA, CIA, whatever it is, there needs to be some form of business acumen, some form of entrepreneurial skills, which is quite important. You know, currently, as we're sitting, 62% of young people in this country are currently unemployed. And those skills, those entrepreneurial skills are quite important. You know, I always make this example, you know, lawyers can always start their own businesses and do their own things, but accountants, they normally struggle. They normally struggle in terms of you know, starting their own businesses. But I think it goes back to how we train them and how we teach them. It goes back to our curriculum, in terms of what do we actually teach them, and ultimately our curriculum, it needs to change. I know that, for example, the CA program is quite strict. You know, we're restricted in terms of what we can do. But I think something which is quite important is that there should be a course around entrepreneurship in terms of how can you train our graduates to become entrepreneurs? Because in order for us to grow the economy of this country, unfortunately, we all need to be entrepreneurs. Because I can't just expect that, you know, oh, I've got a degree, I'm a CA, someone must employ me. It's not enough. You need to find a way of how you can plow back and grow this economy. And the only way of growing this economy is us becoming entrepreneurs. That's it. Yeah.
100%. Unfortunately, as much as, trust me, I'd like us to go on for the next 2 hours, but we just have about 5 minutes. And I think this is the important conversation, or the last parting shot would be the most important, which is something that I discussed with you guys yesterday. What I wanted us to get out of this conversation is, what are the solutions that we can start implementing as soon as today? When we leave this room, within our certain spheres, the power players that are also in this room, what can they start doing today to make that difference, so we can work towards a state where we already have globally competitive graduates, as you said, Prof. Ben, but we make sure that we make the public sector actually attractive, make them want to be patriotic. We're staying in the country, we're building our infrastructure, we're building our economy to a point where we do not need extra skills from the outside. But I'll start with Umam Komo, the parting shots and our contributions to say, what can we start doing from today?
So really, for me, the first one would be to fundraise. I think Abasa members do have the potential to fundraise for the students, especially at postgraduate level. I think NSFAS is able to assist at undergraduate, but postgraduate is a challenge. At some point, we were very excited because NSFAS was actually funding CTA. I don't know what happened, because I was so excited. I thought, thank you very much. I think at the time it was, Babu Masane was still there. You know, I said, he has explained to them that if you want to be a CA, you are not done with having an undergraduate, you still have to study further. So I don't know what happened today, but I understand maybe lack of funds and stuff. But I think as members, we really need to do something about that. And secondly, the endowment funds in the historically disadvantaged universities is needed. You know, we want to develop these skills. It's very important to help our students. We've realized we've passed the stage. We know what we need to do. We are upskilling as academics, but we need the endowment fund that will help to develop the infrastructure in our universities. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ntando, and I think you ran the ship quite well, so well done to you. I think for me, cooperative governance is what is needed in the higher education sector. And under cooperative governance, I want to highlight synergy, I want to highlight coordination. Because some of the issues you've mentioned, let's say funding for the sector, if we are able, recently the department and its entities came to account to Parliament for the annual year 22-23, and there's a lot of duplication, double dipping, duplication, and that is because we aren't coordinated. If we are coordinated, we will make decisions that, yes, there's no funding, but I mean, if you're saying a young person, if they have not completed this, then actually do they even have this qualification? Did we think that through thoroughly? But if we're having conversations, if institutions of higher learning are not ivory towers in our communities, and there's this obsession around institutional autonomy, no one wants to tamper with academic freedom. I think we all have an appreciation for that. But we need to be able to shape the curriculum. We need to be able to have discussions around coordinating budgets so that postgraduate students also benefit, right? I mean, I think if we were to really follow the money and count the cents properly, we would be able to get a few more rands for us to move towards postgraduate funding, right? But because we're just pulling in different directions, there's so much that is being lost in this journey of where we're trying to go. So for me, really, it's cooperative governance, the relationship between institutional autonomy and cooperative governance. I don't want to even talk about academic freedom, because people get touchy when we get there. We know how people have used education in the past to push very regressive agendas. We've seen it in Nazi Germany, we saw it in South Africa, right? So we are not trying to tamper in that place, but we do want to ensure that the education system helps us to achieve our developmental goals as a country, and definitely not only from a very simplistic economic sort of perspective, but from an ethics perspective as well, right? I mean, we don't want accountants that are unethical. And that's why I'm so happy about what you shared earlier on, because I always say, Facet, can you make sure that, you know, you help the entire, because in higher education, guys, everyone always thinks about how they can get money out of the sector. I mean, so it's inspiring to hear that within the financial sector and the whole, you know, ecosystem, there are efforts to try and make sure that we have a more ethical sector. So for me, cooperative governance can really, if we just listen to one another in good faith, because there's also this tendency of listening to one another, and then we walk out of the boardroom and we're all still pulling in different directions. That's not taking us anywhere. It's wasting money, all this conferencing we're doing, the water, the sweets, you know, the microphones, you know. So we're wasting money by having engagements that are not in good faith. Thank you.
So, for me, you know, the pedagogical world is evolving, and there's a much more prominence towards active learning, experiential learning, and flipped classroom dynamics. And why not give our students the best of both worlds? And in the process, ensure that we start creating the sense of mediation in learning as opposed to lecturing in learning. Yes. And that has to be, you know, one of the prominent agendas in terms of upskilling our faculty and ensuring that they can mediate learning. I also do believe that there's so much opportunity for us to take a much more holistic approach within the ecosystem of education. So when individuals are in their third year, or whether they're in their final year of postgrad, get them into summer schools.
Sure.
Let them go through the process of actually working through scenarios and simulations of entrepreneurship, building the ability to communicate in an effective manner in the business environment. Let them come into the environment already having worked on an algorithm of critical problem solving and critical thinking. So when we talk about individuals who are at huge dissonance in terms of their experience since youth, whereby one individual grows up, around a corporate dining room table, and the other grows up in an environment where there has been quite a lot of, economic disadvantages, opportunities. Why not give them that parity when they come into the environment so that they almost come on the same playing field? So all of the gaps that we know exist can most certainly be solved for within the academic realm. And we can do that by virtue of winter schools and summer schools, and ensuring that we create more dynamism in terms of integration of skills development and academia.
Thank you very much. I think we should collaborate between each other, between universities. Sometimes we're on an island and you want to do things on your own, but you should collaborate, you should support each other, you should work together. We should invest our time, and we should invest our money as well. I mean, we must, a small amount of a donation to a student support fund can make a huge need, so that the students can study without this whole debt burden hanging over their heads, and they can enjoy their career at university as well, because student life, you should study hard, but you should also not worry the whole time about your finances, but study hard. But so we must just, work together, and we must be role models for our students as well. I mean, you're talking about ethics. It's so important. There's so much pressure. That's understanding our student body. There's so much pressure on them every day that they need role models. They need ethical leaders to look up, and we all are that, and we need to mentor our students, because we don't understand how important it is sometimes. The other day, and sorry, I just want to say this, but it was so telling. At the beginning of the year, I had a student I had sort of mentored, and not sort of, I mentored him, and we had a conversation at one stage because he wasn't listening. And I spoke to him in a very nice, sternly manner, and he passed the ITC, and when he got his results, he sent me a very nice one. He said, "Thanks that you also spoke to me like a father I never had, in a fatherly manner." And that just touched, it's not about me. But I just want to share it, because sometimes we don't understand the value you can make. By just taking somebody and giving them that example and giving them that guidance. And sorry, but let's invest our time, let's invest our money. And there's all the curriculums, and we can do that. Our students are brilliant, but let's just give them that opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Daniel, you asked the question that what can we do practically going forward? I think for me, we need to go back, to our communities in terms of most of us are professionals here. I come from a township. I couldn't afford to go to tax. But through a bursary, I could go to school. So it's quite important that we go back to those township schools, to our villages and townships, and inspire young people. As I said to you, we've got a huge problem whereby it's quite sad when I see young people coming to my office and say, "I want to be a CA," but they've got maths lit. They've got maths lit. So we need to go back, that we need to be tutors to those young people in our townships, and that's what practically we can do. And I promise you, it does so much to see a person saying, "I'm a CA, I come from this township, I'm here to help you with maths, accounting, or whatever it is." I promise you, it makes such a huge impact, because a majority of our students just do not simply qualify to enter into the CA program. And it's quite sad to see them, not qualifying, even the CTA. Some of them, I've learned that not everyone is meant to be a CA, and that is a fact. Not everyone is meant to be a CA, but I think we can do something to go back. And also, someone said that UNISA is online. If UNISA has changed, we actually give lectures now. So I would encourage you, so please come and be guest lecturers. We normally have classes sometimes in the evening, sometimes on weekends. When we ask you, please don't say, these people are taking away my time. Please come in and give your time to our students, to matriculants. I promise you, it's always nice to hear someone from industry talking to them, inspires them. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So as we leave today, fundamentally what must change is firstly the boardroom politics. Cooperative governance must be the theme of the day, ensuring that we speak to each other, stop working in silos, and all pull in the right direction. Because fundamentally it's painful when you look at the minister doing his budget speech, you listen to the AG's report, and you find that 3 different entities were trying to solve the same problem, and now we're spending triple the budget, but only getting half of the returns.
Exactly.
So cooperative governance will be the theme of the day. Secondly, reinvesting where you came from. If you're an alumni of a historically black college or historically black university, or a university that's in a disadvantaged area, go back and plow what you can. For those in the professional space, you don't have the time, but you do have the money, dig deep in your pocket. Abasa has an Ubuntu Legacy project in partnership with Phoenix. And the purpose of that platform was to allow Abasa members to sow into a fund that will help students that are in critical areas of study get funding. And it's a beautiful platform because it allows them to be the ones to say that this is what I'm studying, this is the funding that I need. They go there and they get what they need. So reinvesting, whether with your time or your money, and ultimately focusing on mathematics, because it will definitely get us out of the mud. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and I look forward to engaging in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hambe kwabantu bonke mna ndiyafunga uma bome ndibuphila ndibushiya emva nemini sasepawulo ihanda sasesa andisale nguye mna lo ndandinguye lokulandelawe noma wena uyaphila lokuhamba ngawe zonke imini sawubomi bam lokulandelawe noma wena uyaphila lokuhamba ngawe zonke imini sawubomi bam sobomi bam sobomi bam sobomi bam siyayami yonke iba ngaphambi kwakho
Such, eh?
andisanawo
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for indulging us. We will just give 5 minutes as we prepare for the next panel. Sit back, relax, let those thoughts soak. We're going to need your minds. We're going to need you to apply your minds. I have a beautiful announcement to make. The 2nd edition of the Abasa Forum magazine has been published. And this year's edition is commemorating the exemplary contributions of the outgoing CEO of SAICA. And one thing that I pride myself on is that he was the first student chapter leader of Abasa. So please, whenever you get an opportunity, scan the barcode, go through that edition, and just read through some of the impeccable contributions that have been made by stalwarts of our industry. Let's all raise a round of applause to Ubab Nomvalo. Next up, we have the panel on digital reforms versus historical socio-economic challenges. Can that panel just prepare to come forward, and they will be up in the next 3 minutes. Thank you.
Noma wena uyaphila lokuhamba ngawe
Hello?
Mwana malume waka kimurata. Not tonight. No. Oh, sansia kilinosi. Inyaka kutsama ya. Jali wena mwena ya ndeng. Hey. Sikulegile kunina, sikulegile kunina bomkulu, sikulegile kunina. Kunina bomkulu. Sikulegile kunina, sikulegile kunina bumkulu, sikulegile kunina, kunina bumkulu. Matonga mahle fumani, sinyanya silele pagamani hey. Matonga mahle fumani sekwanele sibonakaliseni yelelelele yelelelele yelelelelela yelalalale sithokozile kunina. Sithokozile kunina bomkulu, sithokozile kunina. Oh, kunina bomkulu, sithokozile kunina, sithokozile kunina bomkulu, sithokozile kunina. Oh, kunina bomkulu. Matonga mahle fumani, sinyanya silele pagamani hey. Matonga mahle
Subject
fumani.
to. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I'd like to hand over to Mr. Peter Serete, who is the Managing Director of Azania Consulting, as well as the Chairperson of the Abasa Leadership Development Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Morning, everyone. So we are really gonna hit the road running. To my sound guys, I don't know which mic I'm using, so I'll use both. Morning and welcome, everyone. My name, as the already said, is Peter Tebalelo Serite. And I'm really looking forward to this second session. So what we'll be doing in the second session, we'll be picking up from the initial conversations of the first panel and really start exploring the digital reforms that we've been talking about. Everyone in SA is talking about moving to this digital world with AI and all these funny and fancy things. But the reality of it is this: we still have parts of South Africa that are heavily distorted by social economic issues such as load shedding. or even good quality education that this panel before us just looked at. So to help me really unpack this in no order of importance, I'd like my panel to start joining me on stage. I've got from the University of Johannesburg, Ms. Lulama. I've got Ms. Sadiq from Net Solutions. I've got all the way from Limpopo, Mr. Joseph Mpiana. And then I've got from PwC, Mpho Malaka. As a digital panel, we've got one panel member that's joining us from the UK. I don't know if we are ready for Mr. Mtobisi to join us as well and how he'll be coming on the screen. So, again, happy to start. Let me grab my seat. I'll take the far end. All right. So which one am I using? I'll give you this one. All right. Happy with that. Thank you. Makes my life a lot easier. So again, in the spirit of the first, I guess, dialogue that Ntando has just had, let me just take it to Limpopo then, because again, I'm from Limpopo, so there's a bit of, biases. So, what is the issue? What are we experiencing in that side, especially from academia? Just to take off what has just been discussed, to link it then into our discussions. What are some of the observations? What are the challenges you guys are having all the way in the north? Thank you.
No, thanks very much, Peter, and is it still morning? Good morning to everyone, all protocol observed. I think from where we're coming from, or where we are as a province, as well as the institution based there, is that we're having a challenge, and I think it was touched in terms of what we are being fed by our basic education. Most of the time, we're getting students that are coming from between quintile 1 and 3 schools, which are quite less prepared for universities for obvious or various reasons. Some of them are not having proper infrastructure in terms of classrooms. And when they get to university, you start by bridging the gap. And there are some few things that I would want to highlight. Most of the students we are getting, they don't have access to computer labs. They don't have access to computers at all. So the first time they get exposed to a computer is when they get to the computer lab of the university. So that creates sort of a bit of a challenge. So already you can see that you get students that are already behind. When they get into a classroom with a quintile 4-5, then you need to then be in a position to differentiate. And I think Prof. Ben touched on it to say you need to know your students so that when you are addressing them, you are catering for their needs in terms of where they are coming from. So those are some of the key things that we face. And if you look at the historically disadvantaged institutions, most of them, if not all, have got a 4-year accredited SAICA program. And the question is why? And most of that is because they're getting students that are less prepared. They need a little bit of more time into the system for them to adjust to the system and be in a position to sort of be in the same level as the others. And that is one of the key challenges that we are facing, and I think we're hoping that that is something that we'll look into. We also have the issues of financial resources. Yes, there's NSFAS at undergrad, but that NSFAS has got tricks because there's what we call missing middle. So what do you do with the missing middle when there's, 350 or so per annum? And we find that most of those students have got parents that are sitting between the missing middle. It becomes a big, big challenge. Now, if you are coming from or you are based in an HDI institution and you've got those challenges, it makes it very difficult for one to adjust, especially when it comes to the issues of digital acumen. So because now you need to make sure that those students get funded, then they get access to laptop, and then they have internet that they will start now getting to that. I just want to bring this other challenge as part of the historic socioeconomic challenges. Most of the students don't get accommodated on campus because of other reasons. One being the fact that they were not aware they need to apply for accommodation. So now when they are in the campus, they can be on campus during the day and have access to that. What happens in the evening? The student safety becomes a big problem, and I think that is something that is affecting performance of some of those students. So I think I will just highlight those things because I believe there are those that are really giving us a challenge in terms of bridging the gap and welcoming these students into our tertiary institution.
Hey, you've created another problem. Eh? But let's really see how we can unpack them. So we have the students that come with, for lack of a better word, baggage, right? They come with all these issues, whether social or economic. Let me move from here a bit. How then do we unpack these things? So they arrive, they register, they have their student number or student card. What are the practicalities you're seeing? Perhaps move from another institution, Dulama. Well, how do you deal with these challenges?
Thank you, Peter. You know, the challenges are really vast, diverse, and very difficult when you have a set curriculum for a set profession that you need to complete within a certain amount of time. And within academia, we are constantly having to come up with plans on how do you bridge this gap, at the same time, make sure that you complete what you need to complete in terms of the curriculum itself. So we've had to look at our programs as discussed in the previous session, where, for instance, in our institution, as we teach the theory of accounting, we really have had to build half of the time to be practical. So the infrastructure that the university now has to have cannot just be an auditorium where students sit and look at you the whole time. They can do that for part of the teaching and learning, but we have to incorporate an element where we take them to computer labs, and that's where we expose them, if some for the first time, how to switch on a desktop. What is a right click, what is a left click? And that's not in any curriculum. That's something that you start off with someone to just get them onto what is Excel, let alone building the formulas. So by the time they get to industry, we try and build this bridge. Within first year, very tough. It doesn't get better in third year because even though they are with us, like it's been mentioned during term time or during class time, they go back to communities where this is not available. So they do not have access to practice this and make this part of their daily business life or student life as much as we have, especially because of the financial problems. They don't necessarily have a laptop. They don't necessarily have a desktop at home. I think one thing we must be grateful for is the generation is more receptive to digital reform. They're not as scared to try out new things. And COVID did help us with this. So in as much as we've had to adjust our teaching and learning to be more blended, and we are able to record and make the content available at all times, they are also receptive to it. And so it can help us in exposing them a little bit more into the things that they should be made available to. I think we underestimate sometimes the funding that's required to do all this. You know, for the university to be set up for this, to be able to accommodate the numbers of students that we have. I come from an institution where we pride ourselves in providing access to quintile 1, quintile 2 students. So we have big numbers. That means we need to be able to give them a desktop. We need to be able to have the licenses for the software for them to be able to access that. I think the one that we didn't speak to was load shedding and Wi-Fi. It really is a problem. And you know, universities now, other than the decreasing in subsidy, it's our biggest bugbear at the moment. There was an announcement last week that there's going to be cuts in higher education as well. We must fund this infrastructure, but at the same time, we've got load shedding, which means now we need to prepare our campuses to be able to provide solar, to be able to provide generators, diesel is shooting out. So it's really, it's no longer just about the teaching, but the environment that we find ourselves in. We are really having to break bread, 5 loaves to feed the student campus, and it's really become quite difficult. I think in the earlier session they touched on capacitating our lecturers. If you can imagine yourself as a student when you first walked in and there was a particular concept that might have been spoken about and you're hearing it for the first time, you sometimes don't know what to ask because you actually don't understand what's been talked about. And as lecturers sometimes we are not fully aware of the developments that are taking place within the digital space. It's moving very quickly. There's 4IR. You know, we ask ourselves sometimes, what is this 4IR? How do you translate it in the classroom? And we need to capacitate ourselves as lecturers. At the same time, we're needing assistance from business, who are at the forefront and cutting edge of all these developments, who would support us in equipping us so that we can equip and translate that onto the student. In the earlier session, they also spoke about research, and I really concur with the academics that were in the previous channel, in the previous session. We are not only about teaching anymore in accounting, we are about research. And we need to ensure that the research that we participate in or deliver is practical. And we are able to share that with the business world. And the business world, as well as our communities, as well as government, needs to give us the problems that they want us to research so that we can solve some of these problems that we have and partner and collaborate in finding solutions to alleviate these problems. So I guess, as previously mentioned, you know, we are only one stakeholder in the value chain, and we're at the start of it. We do need to collaborate with business to help us support our students, support the trainees, and then support our government to be able to build solutions that can make us be able to deliver what our society needs and work with our communities so that our students, when they transition from university and they go back home, they are able to continue almost seamlessly so that their learning is continuous and there isn't a break within that. Let me maybe stop there.
All right, thank you so much. So you touched on a few critical things, and maybe I want to unpack it, but because I think in the first session and now there's been a lot of academic view of it. So I'm in business, and generally we want to look at a problem from an academic point of view, but the real implementation of it, then we look up to the industry giants, industry experts. And to my right here, I've got from PwC. I want you, to now take a view that is a bit outside of us as accountants or accountants in the room. Let's see what is a big firm, what are they experiencing around these challenges?
Yeah, no, thanks, Peter, and thanks for the opportunity to share the views here. I mean, when I was asked to come in here, it was quite exciting. Issues of development in this country is very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about it. And Joseph, what I didn't tell you when you're speaking about the University of Limpopo, I'm actually a product of the University of the North. I actually went to high school in Radikal in Pirgulu. So the issues you are talking about, I fully appreciate them, and I understand that we need to do something about it. So Peter, for me, before we even talk about anything, I think it's very important, and that the professor here raised it. We need to first have an appreciation of SA Inc. What are the issues that this country is grappling with, and what is the definition of collaboration with the profession without undermining the fact that it must remain independent and it must remain ethical with government and society in terms of solving those socio-economic issues. My view is that we've got three worlds in South Africa. You have the first world, you've got the second world, you've got the third world in the same country. And it's not me who says so. The statistics that came from Minister of, is it Social Development? If you look at what the statistician general said, they said we are now a population of about 62 million people in this country. But listen to what the minister says. She says to us, 27.3 million people in this country are actually dependent on grants. 23 million, which is about 45% of the population of South Africa. And logic dictates to me that 45% does not sit in the first world. It's sitting in the second and the third world, which is within this country. And this is what the initial panel was talking about and the fellow colleagues are talking about. Therefore, whatever we discuss, and I'm bringing, it's my now thinking, is to say, like we said when we talk about transition with electricity, I think time is now that we need to define what do we mean by a just digitization in South Africa in the context of the three worlds. Because your son, somebody's son, the people who are sitting here, they've got access to the things that we're talking about. But that child from Pirigulube, it can only remain a discussion point as opposed to us making sure that we deal with the issue aggressively. And here's my view. The profession has got the ability to partner with government, not only from funding, not only from doing anything, but from changing the approach we take when we go and audit. Professor Ben talked about us, our auditors in this country, being first world kind of auditors. Here's my challenge. We cannot audit a Department of Education as if we're auditing Coca-Cola, which is supposed to be profit-making and doing something. So the shift should start saying, how do we begin to bring the outputs in the center of saying, if the education department is supposed to take a child from early childhood development, primary, up to tertiary level, when we say the department has performed, that is when it has done what? We can't only measure that this department in this province has done well, clean audit, unqualified. It was not created to have a clean audit. It's having a clean audit because its governance is in order, but it was created to produce something. And to what extent are we bringing those things in the center? To say we want to focus on saying you guys must actually produce students which have got the skills that the industry require and that they can become entrepreneurs so that they can stand on their own and grow the economy. Because our mandate as SA Inc. is to shift this dynamic of a 45% of people sitting on grants, to the extent that the minister was saying that I don't have a problem with the BIG, not at all. Let's do that. But there are certain things that we must shift. Here's an opportunity. The generation that was born during the 30 years of our democracy, we got in and we had opportunities to work in government. In 1995, when we started working, we had an opportunity we learned so much in terms of building our country. But somewhere along the line, we lost it. And when we lost it, we actually lost a generation, especially the ones who are sitting in the second and the third economies. Now, here's an opportunity of this crisis. The profession has got an opportunity to turn this thing by its head and push back and say, we're going to focus on outputs. If a department is supposed to produce yes, we'll deal with the other things that are mandatory, are regulatory. But we're going to start focusing on other things and we're going to shift this thing. It has to shift because otherwise we'll continue to get our guys being taken by people outside in the first world. And I mean, you can see I'm passionate. I can go on and on. Maybe I should just pause there and then we can have views around that.
No, absolutely, and thank you for that, Mr. Malaka. So you've touched on a bit, but I want us to almost have different perspectives, then start unpacking. So, Ms. Sadiq, you're heavily involved in the digital space. We've had a couple of chats around this. What are your views on this?
Peter, thank you very much for this platform. Thank you to Abasa. I think from a professional perspective, the disparity between public and private exists far too phenomenally. We attend all of our foundational meetings, we attend these forums, but we seem to have consistent in the term that we want to be independent, but we still want to be differentiators. We need to utilize opportunities of this forum in terms of actually using it as equalizers. We have the power as individuals, starting from home, to make a difference. The choice is ours to make a difference. And we start now. It's fine and well to have our accountants, our auditors, our professionals, our businesses, our CEOs, our private, our public sectors, our ministers talk the talk. But let's start walking the talk. And technology from a situation brings this as an equalizer. It brings the foundations of an online education, of empowering our generation, our youth. Our curious students are sitting here. The curriculum changes now. It changes today. We make a difference in the sense that 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, we encompass and we embody the talk. And that is the passion for technology. Technology is an enabler in this profession. It's an enabler within our generation, but not only for South Africa, for globally. Why stop here? We are the difference. So Peter, when you ask me the businesses and how do we encompass technology, how do we do the digital reform? We're entering the 5IR space. We're entering digital transformation aggressively from a professional perspective. We're entering the phase in terms of artificial intelligence. We're entering the phase of generative intelligence. And those are things we need to encompass into our daily modus to make a difference. This disparity needs to stop.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can go for it.
It's
Thank
a
you so much.
passionate topic, Peter, for me. Henry Ford says, the greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. We have our youngsters in the forum. Let's keep our mind young. We have our professions here. Let's keep our mind young. Let's use technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some interesting points as you were talking, I was just noting here to already say the journey has started. COVID has happened. Whether we like it or not, this transformation journey has started. The trick now is how do we pick up momentum? And I think all the way from London, they're ready to connect our speaker. Oh, I see him coming up. What are your views from much more of a global perspective? Because I think we have had a look at it from an academia locally. We have looked at it from a profession and to a large extent business. What are some of your observations out there in the UK, Mr. Malinga? Over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to join the panel, and thank you for Abasa for the invite. I see an empty seat there, and I wish I was sitting right next to it, with consideration for my weather conditions and all. But nonetheless, I think that some interesting points around different perspectives. One being an academic perspective, another being a profession perspective, and I do find a contrast even from a global perspective, where I think that the accounting profession, has been keeping up to date with the changes from a digitization perspective, with all the transformational requirements that are taking place. So we've shown resilience in that regard. In particular, I think that Southern African accountants are leading and adapting to the digital skills required for the transformation of organizations, in particular in the field of finance, right? So we are seeing that competence, and I think that kind of leads me to beg the question, right? To say that, well, is the current digital competence that accountants are showing in practice a product of an investment that is coming through from academia, or are businesses just investing in employees or providing additional support through consultants, and that's kind of what is working, right? From my perspective, I think that the likelihood is that it's probably the latter, where businesses are investing in employees and consultants to upskill from a digital a requirement or digital skills perspective. And I think that this is, in a way, unfortunate, because I do think that it would be, even commercially, it would be cheaper to invest in academia, as opposed to end up having to cover the gap, which is fairly expensive when you have to get in consultants to upskill and, cover that digital gap that, consultants are able to assist with. So I think it's just for fruit for thought for people to think about. I think in terms of kind of considering what the way forward is and should be, is really to, and some of the speakers have touched on it, right, is that we find in the South African context, we find a balance between social economic issues and the whole concept of digitization, because the reality is that digitization poses a risk of further inequality in the South African context. But further, as much as there's a risk, there's also an opportunity to actually close that gap. So it's almost a double-edged sword in a way, right? Now, the key to success in finding this balance, right, in terms of the socio-economic issues and digitization is always to consider, I think one of the panelists mentioned, SA Inc., right, and kind of how we then collaborate with the global community in that regard. So as much as we are being led by technologies that are being developed from a global context, we always need to then bring in that that South African Inc. Objective in it. The last element that I just wanted to touch on was, just noting that, I am involved as well in South Africa with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, and I think that they've embraced quite well, they have initiatives such as CA, they're talking about CA 2025, where they're promoting that the accountant of the future needs to be digitally savvy and relevant. So yeah, those are my thoughts, Peter, and I hope that adds some value.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Mtabisi. Really appreciate that you could join us. And now that we have unpacked it, and in its unpacking, we've almost started touching on some of the solutions. So from what I'm hearing, in the interest of time, colleagues, firstly, it's that there needs to be a balance, particularly an investment in the academic space. Firstly, to alleviate the challenges that are being experienced, but also to make the accessibility of this digital reform very, very accessible. Whether you are in Limpopo, and a funny story, having grown up in Limpopo, for me that was the only university you could go to. I applied there first, they accepted me, and I was so hell-burnt and leaving. So I tore that application without knowing what else is going to apply, so that my mom would know that, no, that option is off the table. They said they're full for the course, so we can start looking at other things. But how do we then make it accessible? So there's a part academia needs to play, and to me, it links quite a lot with business, because already business is doing the investment, and they are incentivized to, because they're commercially driven. So they are doing the investment. So the partnership between academia, business needs to be strengthened so that we can start seeing the end products that end up at the businesses really funneled through the process properly. And then again, we've seen that certain professional bodies, we could mention a few, SAICA, we've seen ACCA as well, that have really started pioneering into saying, how do we prepare leaders and young folks to be ready for the future that we are going into, whether we are ready for it or not. So again, colleagues, just in half a minute, can I get closing remarks? I'll start to my right. Go for it.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Peter, I think there's a lot of opportunity, my colleague has already indicated in terms of the opportunity to collaborate. I think we need to really go and think this thing through. Let's not just talk collaboration as an English term. We need to then say, when we put flesh into the skeleton called collaboration, in this context, what would it mean? Simple example, I've seen it in different industries, where through PLSA and BOOS and so forth, we've actually collaborated with government and communities to solve complex problems. Simple example, the CEO of one of the big mines is actually leading that council that is dealing with issues of security and so forth in the country. That's collaboration in the true sense of it. So hence I said to myself, I know that the industry is driven by being ethical and independent. We need to then define what is that collaboration to business, industry, as well as a profession and government, without compromising that, without leaving the beneficiaries of that collaboration out of the equation. We need to go and redefine it and make sure that we breathe life into it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ms. Sadiq?
Thank you, Peter. Peter, I think I'm passionate about economic empowerment, encouraging entrepreneurship. That is where we need to start. We do it through e-commerce platforms. We provide digital skills. I'm sure everyone is aware that, in the 5th Distinct Education Association of South Africa, UNISA was recognized as an online platform foundation where we can start encouraging that collaboration. And that is what we start today.
Thank you.
Half a minute is a challenge for me, but I'll try. I think the reality of it is that, and I'm happy that we have so many academics present today. As academics, we need to get out of the universities and go and meet with business and explain our issues. And business also needs to come into our universities. One, to expose our students to what's out there, but also to help us in building solutions that can provide access not only to people registered in the university, but also get the surrounding community to be able to have access to the facilities that universities have. We do that in community engagement, where we bring our teachers in Soweto to come for workshops with us. We go there and speak to their students directly. So that bridge needs to open up a lot. We also need to be mindful that sitting here, in the rest of the country, only 6% has a degree. Only 6%. So the majority do not have this. And we need to find solutions to address the other 94% and how we bring them into this economic development. And I think that's where business is key. And call on the lecturers, call on the academics to come with you wherever you're going. We are available. And that also helps us understand where our students come from. Once we actually step out of university, and we've spoken about research already. And then I think the last one is, for all of us here, probably when we did accounting, we all knew CA. There's a bigger value chain in accountancy, and it was mentioned in the previous plenary, that starts below NQF level 7. We need to educate ourselves, those of us who are above NQF level 7, of what's happening below that. Because that's likelihood the 94%. And how are we supporting them and bringing them in to this accountancy field? It's a very important part. And they're at the beginning. They do the input, garbage in, garbage out. If we don't sort that level, then the CA is working with information that is not correct. And I think we need to go back into that. My last point is multidisciplinary. If you think of what you studied, we all talk about the 4 core in accounting. Maybe it's time we brought in some of the scientific subjects around technology into our curriculum, not just Excel. Understand what we talk about when we talk about algorithms. You may not be able to do it, but it mustn't scare you when you walk into business. And then the softer side of it is the humanities. Machines are one thing, but what are your soft skills? What are your professional skills? If you go overseas, if you're an engineer, you have to do a humanities subject. It's time that in the accounting curriculum, we start thinking about multidisciplinary and bring that in so that our students are better prepared for the outside world. Thanks.
I wish I could say I concur because I'm right at the end. But I think maybe, academics, when they start, they don't really finish. So I think before I get to that point, and I think something that we need to take out of this is the challenges that we are facing, or the challenges that quintile 1 to 3 schools are facing at those rural areas or villages, as we call them. And I believe some of us, we are coming from there. I think the challenge that I would pose to all of us is, let's go back. If all of us go back to at least the high school you studied and engage the school about the profession, not necessarily CA as indicated. And I believe that there's a lack of knowledge that is there where students don't even apply. The issues of maths literacy, it's not something that we can solve it here. It's something that when schools are engaged at the grade 9s before they go to grade 10, then they will know that if I took this particular path, these are my career options. And I think that, to me, is very, very important that we look into. Coming to how do we go about it once we are where we are now? I think SAIC has responded very well in terms of the CA 2025 competency framework. The issues of digital acumen are coming out very clear, and I think that is an opportunity for business to collaborate with universities and give students projects that will expose them while they are still doing their undergrad, and that to me is very important. And the last one is for academics. You know, we need to learn and relearn. So if we don't evolve, then we're going to be irrelevant in terms of the digital transforms that we are facing. Thank you.
Alrighty. With that said, to my timekeeper and program director, thank you so much. And all the way from UK, thank you so much. To my guests, thank you so much. And Abasa, really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you. Oh, I think we need to take a quick picture.
Baby,
We need to take this.
is under puse. The kiss is unknown. Is unknown. Ukutanda umuntu wakho. Is unknown. Baby, ndiyabuza. Ayeka kunjalo. Bashuti ngizacela uxolo. Ize masithandane, sibuqane, vutha umlilo. Baby, ngicela kiss. Is under puse. The kiss is unknown. Ndifuna la, nduze kwami. Baby, the kiss is under puse. Ooh, yeah. Yalana, tanda umuntu wakho. Yalana, baby, ndiyabuza. Ayikawujala, shuthi sawuvela etrongweni. Ize masithandane, sibuqane, qhuma uthuli. Yesana, ndiyadideka, ndiyaloka.
Thank you so much for that panel. Really inciting perspectives. Clearly, academics is a running theme, and there's a lot of investment that needs to be done in that sector. I hope those with deep pockets are paying attention and taking down notes. Moving swiftly right along, please do forgive us. In the interest of time, some of our panelists have to leave us. So we'll just go swiftly into panel 3 and 4, and then thereafter we'll go to an hour intermission. I would like to call up Manana Motimele, who is the head of the trainee forum at Abasa, and she's also senior manager at PwC. She will be leading the panel on Africa and global mobility for the accounting profession.
Baby, ngicela kiss is under puse. Ngicela kiss is unknown. Ndifuna la, nduze kwami. Baby, ngicela kiss is under puse. Ndifuna la, when I don't know why. Nduze kwami. Baby, ngicela kiss is under puse. Is under puse.
I think so, yes.
Kunzima nam ndiyazi vele phithi you get through, yeah. Indlela ibona kwaba phambili, sukoyika wenza kakhulu. Be strong, move on, ngoba baninzi, yeah. And when the odds are nami abaninzi, I'm not the first and not the last, baninzi. Gotta survive, ngaphumelela baninzi. Get up and chase their dreams, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Lose all, keep fighting, yeah, you're not alone, yeah. Isendlela ndlela, awambi wedwa. Indlela izokhanya soon enough. Jonga phambili. You're not the first and you won't be the last. So keep your head up. Bambelela, oh. And when the odds are nami abaninzi, I'm not the first and not the last, baninzi. Gotta survive, ngaphumelela baninzi. Get up and chase their dreams, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. And when the odds are nami abaninzi, I'm not the first and not the last, baninzi. Gotta survive, ngaphumelela baninzi. Get up and chase their dreams, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baninzi, yeah, baninzi. Baby, ngicela kiss isande kuze. Ngicela kiss isanono. Isanona ukuthanda umuntu wakho. Isanona, baby ndiyabuza. Hayi xa kunjalo, bashuthi ngizacela uxolo. Ize masithandane, sibuqane, vutha umlilo. Baby, ngicela kiss isande kuze. Ngicela kiss isanono. Ndifuna la eduze kwami. Baby, ngicela kiss isande kuze.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Wow, nice. Good morning, everyone. My name is Neo Mutimele, but I'm also known as Mananana Mutimele. That's my name that I got from my grandmother. I love it a lot. So if you can't find Neo Mutimele anywhere on the internet, definitely try Mananana, you'll find me. So here to introduce the next topic, which is Africa and global mobility for the accounting profession. This topic is particularly very, very important to me because as a newly qualified CA, these are some of the cards, which were dealt for me or which were on my table when I had to decide what's next after my training, right? So whether I'm staying in South Africa or whether I'm gonna go to UK and join the other CAs and the other accounting professionals that are out there, right? So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my panel to the stage. I have Fernie, who is the CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Namibia. I have Miss Benny, who is the Diversity and Inclusion Head at BDO US. Then, technology, guys. We were speaking about digital acumen just before this session. I'm supposed to have Sei, who's the CEO of Digital Realty Online. I'm not sure if he has joined, but in the interest of time, we'll just continue. He will find us on the way, because this is a bus that's moving. And then lastly, we have Tepo, who is a senior manager at AGSA and also a chairperson of SAIGA. SAIGA. Yes. Alrighty, so we have quite a lot of questions that we need to get through, and I'd really appreciate if, for the interest of time, we'd just keep our responses a bit brief. And I'll start with you, Fanny, right, as we introduce this topic of Africa and global mobility of our accounting profession, right? Can you unpack for us what you understand about this phenomenon, and how does it resonate to you?
Thank you so much, Neo. I just want to say greetings from sunny Namibia. It's really good to be here. And I always feel at home when I'm here in Joburg, so I would really just like to thank Abasa for the invitation. So how does it resonate with me, and especially for the accounting profession in Namibia, I must say, and globally, it has become a harsh reality, but a good reality. We've got a very small membership base, and for the longest time, we were quite comfortable because only about 15% of our member base was globally spread. But the past 5 years has actually taught us that, especially the younger generation, they are yearning for global mobility. You mentioned earlier that you're a newly qualified CA, so we get that a lot. The selling proposition now to the young generations that are coming in is not necessarily a high salary or recognition in the workplace. They want global mobility. But I think what we can do better as the profession, I think, is not only focus on global mobility, but also African mobility. How do we, within Africa, within the African regional communities, connect and collaborate so that we can really be very efficient and have smooth mobility within Africa? I mean, I'm talking about the SADC regions, the COMESA regions, etc. What are we doing in these regions to ensure that we've got smooth mobility within the profession? So it has really become a reality for us. We receive numerous requests. We want to be in Canada, we want to be in the US, but we also want requests like we want to be in Nigeria, we want to be in Kenya. So what are we doing as the profession to really stimulate that global mobility?
One thing about technology, it will embarrass you. During the people. Okay, great, we're back. So I particularly agree with you, right? We need to make movement into Africa a bit more fashionable. I know it's nice to want to go to Europe, to want to go to the United States and all over the world, but Africa also yearns for this talent that we have in our country and in Africa at large. And I want to come to you, Benny, and I want us to unpack, some of the factors that are there that result in a high turnover rate of accountants that we are seeing, right, in the market currently.
Well, first of all, can you hear me? Technology will get us every time. Well, first of all, this is my first time in South Africa, and I am having a time of my life. And so I want to thank my CEO of BDO South Africa and all of our colleagues for hosting me here. And I thank all of you at the Abasa, Miss Linda, for having me here and being a part of this. I do want to quickly say what resonates for me about Abasa, even though I'm learning. I'm still a work in progress, but I am learning that in part, this is about developing talent and ensuring access to opportunities. And I am so thrilled to learn about this because we have the future leaders in this room, not just of South Africa, but of the world. And so let's make education make a nation. But to your question about, high turnover, there was this thing that's called the pandemic that we all as a world went through for the first time in our lives, right? We can say that as a world, we all went through the exact same thing. And during that time, there was this thing, I don't know if it's just the United States, that was called the Great Resignation.
Yes.
Anybody heard about that?
Yes.
I call it the Great Reassessing. And the reason I call it that, it is because individuals had an opportunity to really assess what they want from their employers going forward. The way they work, whether it's hybrid, differently, and exactly what is it they want from an employer. This morning, a little while ago, I should say, we heard from the professors who talked about students are driving the curriculum. Well, I'm here to say employees are driving the way they want to be at work. They want to make sure that their values are aligned with the strategies and vision of an organization. They want to make sure that their why and their purpose for being with that organization is aligned with what they do. They want to make sure that culture is the culture of an organization is something they can buy into. Anything short of that, we will have high turnover.
Sure, that's a mouthful. And I think when I come to you, Tep, I just want to divert the conversation a bit because you are in the government sector, right? And I want us to look at African global mobility from a government perspective, to say that at the moment, what we are seeing, which is prevalent, is more private sector employees making their way to work abroad, right? So I wanted to check with you to just get your opinion, to say, do you think those opportunities are there for the people that trained in the public sector? And do you think that professional bodies are doing enough to ensure that the employees in the public sector also get the similar opportunities of being able to go abroad to work?
No, thank you, facilitator, for the question. And thanks to Abasa for the invitation. It's highly appreciated. And I concur with my panelists here based on what they said before me. From where I'm sitting, I would like to correct you. I'm not the president of Abasa, sorry, of SAIGA. The president is there, Mr. Philip Rakwale. Maybe it's a sign that going forward, yeah, I'm a chairperson of a subcommittee of the board, which is the Global Enterprise Development Committee, which deals mainly with the discussion that we're having here. And we're focusing also in Africa, because while doing my university studies and even in the corporate world, everyone wants to go to the UK, everyone wants to go to the US. But when I travel, I do most of the traveling in Africa. There's so much that we can contribute in this continent. Yeah, when I just look at the facilities that we have even here in South Africa, we can partner with our fellow SAIs in the African continent and empower them and assist them also to develop to the level that SAI South Africa is. So I just wanted to touch on that part, to say we are aligned in terms of growing and exploring Africa. But coming back to your question, in my experience, I've seen a lot of public sector auditors being seconded to overseas, even supreme audit institutions, and also migrating for good. Some are gone. They've been accepted there. So for me, I think it's a myth to say that if you're in the public sector space, your chances of migrating or moving overseas are limited. Because, like I said, even now, one of the SAIGA member just returned from New Zealand. Just that shows that there is appetite for South African, I don't want to say CA, South African accountants / auditors because this profession is broad. It's not only limited to CAs. We have other professional bodies as well. Hence, we need to also emphasize them so that we broaden the net, because SAICA will not be able to accommodate everyone. There's a bigger demand for professional accountants in this country, and I think by sharing the pool, we'll be doing a great deal to capacitate the need. There is a need in our country for accountants. So yeah, like I said, for me, there is opportunity, and it is happening also that the public sector colleagues are being offered international opportunities. So people out there, don't be scared to come to the public sector. There is opportunities out there. I did my articles in the private sector, but ever since I joined AGSA, I've never looked back, because I learned a lot in terms of service delivery aspects and auditing institutions that are not profit-driven. Like one of the panelists was saying there, you cannot audit a Department of Education like you're auditing Coca-Cola. Yes, there's a service delivery aspect to it. And some of these things we can resonate, because we come from those townships. Before you are an auditor, you are a citizen. So we can resonate with some of these challenges that were mentioned here. And I agree with the colleagues that it's up to us to ensure that we go back to our roots and also give back, like we were helped by someone to be where we are even now. Did I answer?
Yes, you did. And I like what you're saying, right? And I think this is a perception that we need to carry forward, right? To say that it doesn't matter where you start, whether it's in private sector or in public sector, you will get the opportunity. And I think this is a seed that we need to plant to our trainees as well, to say that public sector is the way to be. And it's not going to limit you in any way in terms of opportunities, because that fear is there, and we really cannot shy away from it. So I'm happy that you're saying this, right? Because this is a seed that we need to plant going forward in terms of the importance of working in the public sector.
Sorry, I forgot to answer the second part.
Okay.
I got carried away with the first part. So yeah, the second part you asked, what are the professional bodies doing, or whether they are doing enough to assist the members to explore this. In my experience, the international opportunities, I only became aware of them at varsity. I studied at UP. That's when we started hearing about you can go overseas. But growing up in high school, all of us wanted to just work in South Africa. So there's room for us to capacitate our learners in high school or even primary to give them that appetite to go out there. And in my travelings, I could say our brothers and sisters in Africa have the appetite to travel more than us here in South Africa.
Yes.
So as a professional body, SAIGA, we are engaging with a few international stakeholders, even Namibia, we engaging with them, Lesotho and other African countries to expand our members' exposure in the African continent, to close the skills gap that is out there. And even, I think we've been invited also as SAIGA to IDI Global Summit in London, I think next week, the 14th and 15th of November. That shows that we are expanding our network even beyond the South African borders. And that is the core responsibility of the committee that I'm chairing at SAIGA, to ensure that our membership, while we are growing it, we are not only growing it in South Africa, but we are growing it in SADC and the other regional economic communities in Africa, your ECOWAS and so forth.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Fanny, let me come back to you, right? Let's talk about adaptability. Now you're moving into, the African space and the global space. And I think this one, just to share a bit of a background from my side, this year I did a secondment in Houston, United States. And what I found to be very challenging was adapting to the environment, fitting into the culture of the Americans, right? So I think as a CEO of, ICAN, how is the institute capacitating its members, to ensure that when they do take these opportunities, they're able to adapt when they get to those countries?
That's a very good question, Leo. So there's really a lot at stake, and one never wants to set anyone up for failure when they are mobile in Africa and even beyond that. So one of the biggest key aspects is always to make sure that every single professional, every single member, it doesn't matter whether it's a CA or a non-CA, is equipped with the right skills. So you first take them out there, support them in training, development opportunities, and ensure that it's not only about local legislation and local laws, it's about regional laws, it's about global laws. It's not only about specific accounting standards, there is much more beyond borders than that. And then also mentoring and coaching. I know it was mentioned by previous speakers as well, that I don't think we do that enough, you know, and mentoring is so important, especially when you're sending people out there to go and represent you globally and in Africa's. And then of course also just very important, flexible work arrangements. And I think that has become the norm. You know, we thought it was just going to be a matter of COVID, but we need to embrace the flexible work arrangements. If someone is mobile in Africa and beyond, we need to make peace with the fact that, number one, you create an element of discipline, you trust, you know, that they get the job done. In adapting to that environment, you invest in the right technology to make sure they're settled in wherever they are, create a lot of options, whether it is remote working options or virtual options, hybrid options, and make them feel part of the team. You know, just creating that positive work culture and creating that coaching and mentoring environment.
Thank you so much for that. I think, Benny, coming to you, let's look at the concept of virtual mobility, right? Where it's a trainee or a professional who works in South Africa, but they work for an international company, right? And when we think about virtual mobility, let's also think about career growth, right? Coming from a company that embraces, you know, talent from all the parts of the world, how do you guys ensure that, you know, your talent, when you get them from different parts of the country, even though they're working virtually, how do you ensure that you still drive career growth and you are including them into the culture of the company?
I agree with every single thing my colleague just said. Every single thing. Because I love that you said we have to make peace with flexibility, right? Because this is the culture today. We have to make peace with how we work differently. COVID has taught us that. But to your specific question about how we work virtually with our colleagues and ensuring that they feel connected, they feel that they're a part of a team, we have a buddy system. As a matter of fact, I can give you a real-life example that we have 2,000 individuals virtually working for the United States in India. And we have a buddy system where we make sure that they are buddied with individuals from the United States and vice versa, and be able to work hand in hand as we are training together, learning together. As a matter of fact, the leaders from the United States, and we ensure that we are constantly visiting in person. As a matter of fact, personally, I was just in India a month ago for a week where I met with our people and culture and DEI team in training and sharing of ideas and making sure that we are collaborative, if you will, in every single thing that we do. We do not let borders be an obstacle. We do not let the time zone be an obstacle. But it takes a level of commitment on both sides to ensure that we show up and show out. When there is a meeting, we show up with curiosity and show up ready and prepared for that meeting. If there's an agenda, we review that agenda and come ready to participate in that meeting fully so that we can learn from one another.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've said a mouthful. But I think as a closing remark, I do agree that global mobility and African mobility is something that we need to start talking about, and particularly, encouraging our trainees and our accountants to start looking into the African market, right? Because we do need talent, like I said, when we started, in all the parts of our African country. And also another thing that I really want to reiterate, guys, is the importance of pushing the government sector agenda. We need more accountants, we need more professionals in our government sector, right? So as a closing remarks to you, Tefo, what would be your closing remarks in terms of this topic?
I enjoy this topic because I'm pro-Africa and obviously global collaboration, and I'm glad we have our colleagues from the US here and Namibia, and this should not just stop here. Like the president said in her opening remarks that this should not be just a talk shop. You come here and we pitch up. This must be a relationship that we're building going forward so that those who come after us, we lay the path that was never laid before us, because now we know better. So yeah, I think it was a great conversation, and I have a few takeaways from this conversation. Thank you.
For me, I think that mentoring is extremely important. That we should all, because I love what you said about the ones, we are here because we sit on the shoulders of others. And so we need to pay that forward and ensuring that we are teaching, sharing, and creating an environment that is motivating for our next leaders, if you will, our future leaders. Oftentimes we would say, why can't you be motivated? Well, a part of my philosophy is, you can't make me motivated, but what you can do is create an environment that allows me to be motivated. And so let's keep mentoring each other, learn from one another. The future is ours.
I think my panelists here have said it all. They stole the words from my mouth, but I think we just also need to just realize that we are in an international and globally connected world. We are almost borderless in a lot of things. And we also just need to really rebrand the accounting profession in general to make it clear that we are really internationally connected. We're not just a traditional profession that has traditional competencies, that is based locally or regionally. We are a globally connected profession, and we need to rebrand that to the learners, to the students, to the professionals out there, because we have so much potential to tap into the global world, so much potential that we need to maximize. And again, not only globally, but especially in Africa. We really need to maximize our potential in Africa.
So before I let you guys go, I'm told that we still have a few minutes. So I'm going to open some questions to the floor, maybe one question from the floor, if there are any questions.
Please, none.
1, 2, sold. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nia.
Thank you so much.
heartless in every way. I'm losing my way. I'm losing my way through this darkness. She was heartless in every way. I'm losing my way. I'm losing my way through this darkness. She was heartless in every way. I'm losing my way.
Sound check 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We will be giving you a 15-minute comfort break, and we will be back at 1:45. So you can get up, stretch your legs, get something to drink, and we'll see you in the next 15. Thank you.
I wish you'd known how far I go